Hello and welcome to a new video on the new Zone Gradient Photoshop panel. For those that used the previous version, which was 1.1, will be aware that in order to map out zones within the image, we used a visual zone scale. Well, in the new version we can still use the zone scale. That has been improved to allow us to select from one of the four sides of the image to display the zone scale. And what we did in the previous version, we selected the zone scale and then we used the info panel to map out whereabouts on the image the zones actually fell. So this was a visual representation on the old panel. With this new zone gradient panel, we've actually taken that one step further to allow us to see a live view directly onto the panel as to where these shades of grey fall within a particular zone. And the way that we can do that, we can take the colour sampler tool and we can place it anywhere within the image. And once we've done that, we choose a sample size. I'm going to select point sample, and we can now see that underneath this sample point, the shades of grey fall on zone 6. We can take that sampler point and we can move it around the image, and this automatically updates with the current information. We don't have to use a single sample point. If we want to do like a road map of the image to work out where the editing workflow is going to go, we can use different sample points. So we can place as many sample points as Photoshop allows us to use, and then this will give us a visual representation of where all the tones lie and where we want them to move them to. When we're talking about moving tones, we can actually use this live view to manipulate the tone underneath that sample point. Let me clear out these sample points by clicking the trash icon. And I'll start by placing a new one around here. This indicates that we're looking at zone 6. The number 1 indicates that it's the first sample point that we've chosen. So in this example, I want to bring this down from zone 6 to zone 5. So effectively, I'm going to be darkening this part of the image by one full zone. The way that we can do that is either by using the levels or the curves adjustment tool. I'm going to choose to use the curves, so I'm going to select curves. This makes the curves for us. And when using the curves, we need to select the target tool, which is this finger icon. I'm going to select that, click inside of the colour sampler point, and then I'm going to simply drag down, watching the panel until I see that drop by one zone. So I'm going to press, click down and press, and I'm clicking down, and I'm just watching the point. I've actually moved it too far, that's on zone 4. So I'm just going to raise that slightly, and now that's indicated that's now on zone 5. By doing that, you'll also notice that it's brought every other tone down on the image by that one zone placement. Not something that I want, I just wanted this part of the image to be affected. So the way that we can get around that is to fill the mask of the curves with black by pressing this icon. And now I can paint back in that effect using a white brush. So I'm going to choose a white brush, an appropriate brush size and opacity. And I'm simply just going to press and paint back in that area that I want to be affected by that one zone change. So as I paint this in, you'll notice on the panel that it will actually fall down to that zone 5. If I want other parts of the image to also be affected, I can paint that back in. So we are selectively painting back in that zone placement change without affecting the rest of the image. So if I turn on and off that layer, we'll see that the changes are now only applied to where that mask is visible. If you want to see the mask, We can do that by pressing the mask icon, and that gives us an indication as to the shape and the softness of that mask. I can turn that off. And for those that like to use the red overlay as the mask, we can do that by pressing this icon here, and it shows us the red overlay. So the zone gradient panel is a very quick and effective way which allows us to manipulate these tones based on a particular zonal value. Inside of the zone patch itself, we are displaying the current RGB values and the respective L-star values, if you like to work in those measurements. These values will change depending on the colour space that we're using. In this case, it's Adobe RGB. And if you was to change colour space, then the shades of grey inside of this zone patch, along with the RGB numbers, will also change to reflect the working colour space. So that's just a quick demonstration on the new Zone Gradient Photoshop panel. It's now available on the website, and I will leave a link to that in the description below. So until next time, thank you for watching. Bye for now.